We're very environmentally oriented. Every year, each student would plant a tree, and the tree was made for the environment. They knew exactly where we lived and what trees would grow the best. The fun thing about this is once you planted that tree, you put your name on it. And in the latter years, when high-tech came in, we GPSed wherever they put their trees, so they can go back, they have the coordinates, and check and see if their tree is still there, did it survive.
You're listening to
My Québec City 50 Plus Edition.
Hello, my name is William, and today I'm going to be your host on My Québec City podcast. Today we have Danny Neville. Hello, Danny. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Will. Nice to be here and to get a chance to talk to you.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Danny Neville, and I was born in 1949. That makes me 75 years old this year. I grew up in a family with 3 brothers and a sister. I have a twin brother, Dave, who's a few minutes older than I am. I've lived most of my life in Shannon, married at 25 years old, and this year my wife and I will celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. We have 2 children. Our daughter has 2 children. My son has 4 children, and he has a pair of twins. So my wife and I have the pleasure of spending a lot of time with our 6 grandchildren.
You said you grew up in Shannon. What did you most like about this place?
Oh, Shannon, there were a lot of things that were favorable. My father was a stationary engineer for Dominion Arsenal, and we lived in the Arsenal apartments. There were 2 huge blocks where 4 family units in each. So as a kid, when we grew up, we played a lot of boot hockey, or road hockey, some people would call it. And on weekends, we were fortunate enough to be members of the package plan. That enabled us to use the facilities at the Super Sports Complex on the base. And at that time, you could go bowling, or you could go swimming. The huge gym had a variety of sports you could play. And for a good while, they were giving boxing lessons to everybody. If I go into my teens, I played a lot of softball and hockey.
That's interesting. I heard you were a teacher for 48 years. How was it?
Well, 48 years is a long time. A lot of things have changed. I started teaching at DDO in 1970. 1970, we had ashtrays in our classes and we were smoking. You know, we've come a long way. The school was built in 1952 by the federal government. It was controlled by military school boards, and they had schools all across Canada. And in 1994, because I worked 23 years under the federal government, 1994, the federal government decided to get out of education. So they transferred all the schools to local school boards. That made quite a difference in DDO. Under the military board, Anglophones and Francophones were in the same building. Teams were mixed. When they transferred to the provincial government, the Francophones had to go to Francophone board. The Anglophones had to go to an Anglophone board. So in our case, DDO went to Eastern Quebec School Board, which was later transferred to Central Quebec, which it lies now. And the Francophones went to the Capitale. Things have changed considerably. Now, DDO is under the Quebec Central School Board. The population is a little over 600. Do you have any specific questions you'd like me to answer about the schools or teaching at the time?
Yes, of course. One of the projects you started more than 40 years ago still exists at DDO. It was called Pine River Excursion. Can you explain on it?
Pine River, yes. Wow. I started that project in 1979. It came about, we were still under military school board. We had a lot of outings, but they were very expensive. So we were looking for an alternative. And some of my colleagues and I came up and said, well, my family, the Nevilles, we own a fair-sized lot, and it's on Pine River. So we decided, well, why don't we go camping there? You have to understand, this is truly camping. There are no facilities, no electricity, no washrooms. The first 30 years, I was backed by the base. I could go to the cadet camp and I would sign out $37,000 worth of equipment. I would sign out all the canoes, the paddles, the life preservers, 4-person tents, military sleeping bags, axes, shovels, stretchers, because we used to have stretcher races. Our family never charged a cent to camp there for 40 years.
It became a fun activity for everyone.
Oh, yes. I would say there's over 2,000 students have gone there. 2,000 students are like 2,000 beavers on your land for a week, but that's not a problem with our family. It takes so many people. I had so many good people with me camping. Even the people that didn't camp when teachers were at school, they were just enormous help. So teachers who did go to Pine River, they were there 24 hours a day for the week. But they had to prepare all the courses they left behind. And teachers that were left behind volunteered to take them. And that's incredible cooperation among the staff to be able to do that.
Have you ever faced challenges in charge of Pine River?
We've had tough times. You have to understand we're at the hands of Mother Nature. In 1995, we had the year of the mosquito. It was incredible. It was a very quiet trip because if you open your mouth, you'd be eating mosquitoes. We had the mud bowl. The land is blue clay. When we grew up there, we were all known as, here are the clay boys. With rain, it doesn't sink into the ground. It just creates a slime and then runs off.
Slippery slopes.
Oh, slippery slopes for sure. To the point that we would have to make a path through the bush. We couldn't walk the road. It was impossible. We've had a year where we weren't allowed fires because it was a drought. That had its pros and cons. The big fire planes would land and spin in the water around us, put a show on for us. You could feel them rattling your tents going by. The mountains on the military side were on fire. But we got through it. You know, you make do. The students are very tough. You know, no facilities. When you have no electricity, no washrooms, there's work to be done.
They make do.
They make do.
What do you think the students got out of this event?
We were there to enjoy the environment and learn safety. We were well organized. Pine River was a trip that would start in school months ahead. They would be given checklists or tent groups. This was made by kids over 30 years. We'd add and subtract every year. They would arrive. We give them a shovel and a grate. They get a campsite. They have to dig their own fire pit, and there's your grate. You're cooking breakfast and dinner for the week. It was a lot of work. As far as washrooms originally, yes, we used to dig a lot of washrooms and cover them up. We did it. They learned very quick little things, you know. If you leave your toilet paper out and it's not wrapped and it rains at night, good luck tomorrow. We would teach them. We had some funny situations. I had a student come up, hold a can of beans and a can opener in the other hand, said, "How does this work?" You know, they live in a house with electric can openers and they've never had to do it. So they learned a lot about camping, friendship, working as a team in a canoe, working as a team in the tent area. You're living in there. Somebody goes walking in with muddy boots into the tent, well, you have to live with that. Some students were amazed at other students. They said, you know, I don't think they can do anything. They were stars. They were helpers. They had the endurance. They came back with a total different picture of each other. You know, and they had to work, teamwork, and that's basically one of the things we were trying to teach. It was good for the teachers, too. I learned a lot of things from the students. I'll go by at 5 o'clock in the morning one morning, and there was Steve was there, and he was frying this thing in a frying pan. I said, ugh. And he says, "Well, you want to try one?" I tried one. He was frying slices of dill pickle at 5 o'clock in the morning. Did that ever taste good to me? I bring dill pickles every time I go camping now. There was a give and take. Somebody had a recipe or a different type of cooking food. So they learned a lot of things. It was a good experience for everybody. Teachers that couldn't make it and wanted to would show up in the evenings for supper. People would shine with some of the events. We had Pine Idol. We had treasure hunts. We showed them how to make fire starters, things that would save them, things that they should think about if they're going out in boats and
survival skills. Survival skills,
definitely. And I had support from everybody.
Thank you for coming over, Danny, and sharing us your experiences with Pine River.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Will. At the same time, I'd like to thank the Voice of English Québec. They're a tremendous association that's been in the English community, helping everybody. I see it in the communities today. They're doing wonderful work. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to tell part of my story. And I hear you want to be a pilot, so never give up your dream.
Thank you. And that's our podcast. Thank you for listening and tune in for the next show.